So I did a butt workout yesterday, a glute workout technically, but it's for a challenge called Ass August. And my butt is very sore. And this is how I imagine it would feel to get railed across an altar, like how I would be walking around after it, how I'm walking around today. Anyway, welcome listener to We Read It One Night. I'm Allison, a romance author and reader.
And I'm Caro, a romance blogger and erstwhile attempted writer. We'll see.
Yeah, one day, hopefully. And this is We Read It One Night, the podcast where we talk about the romance novels and the romance tea that makes us want to stay up all night reading. And today, we're talking about Priest by Sierra Simone. So that's why I'm talking about getting railed on the holy altar. So I'm only a little bit sacrilegious. But before we talk about Priest, Caro, what book is making you want to stay up all night reading this week?
Well, I'm actually finishing right now Pansies by Alexis Hall, and it is excellent. It's a contemporary romance, Achillean, I guess you could say, that is full of the Alexis Hall humor and the sex and people hooking up in interesting places, but also bearing their souls in a way that makes me want to like cry as I'm listening to it. Also, Cornell Collins, I want to say, he is a very prolific audiobook narrator, not only for Alexis, but like a lot of other books. I think he does some KJ Charles. Excellent if you want to listen to this book. So that's Pansies. Go ahead. What about you?
I just finished today Always by Lindsay Sands, which is just a very silly, as with all of Lindsay Sands' medievals, this is a very silly medieval. It's just,
she does like medieval rom-coms.
Yeah.
It's very unique. Honestly.
It's so medieval rom-coms. It's about like the bastard daughter of Henry II, and she's like about to become a nun, but then he's like, no, you gotta marry this man who I just dragged out of bed to marry. And they get married. Classic. And because the man has just been cheated on, so he broke his like betrothal. So Henry's like, great, he's free. He's got to marry my daughter. And they get married and obviously fall in love. And she's very good with horse. She's like very much a horse girl. She's very good with animals. She basically becomes like the local vet. This is like Lindsay Sands' classic, where like she becomes like irreplaceable like value to like the keep. And like all the like peasants and everything, like everyone loves her. He leaves for like a week and comes back, and everyone's like, we like her a lot better than you, actually.
We're happy with her, and we're not happy with you.
Like his like brother and his like father and his best friends are constantly like tackling him every time he wants to like yell at his wife, and they're like, you need to calm down and like be cool for like 2 seconds because she's done nothing wrong. And obviously there's, as with all medievals, a random murder plot that pops up in the last act. But it was just fun. It was fun and delightful. And the other two books that I'm reading are nonfiction, so
I need to read more Lindsay Sands though, because I've only read like a couple of, and I know that she's kind of like a legend in the space.
Yeah, I feel like she's most well known for she has like a vampire series, I think. I've never read those. I've just read her silly historicals. Oh, I have read Single White Vampire. That is a vampire. It's where like a vampire is like he's like an author, and then he like decides that he like doesn't want to be an author. He won't like finish the last manuscript or whatever. So his editor like hunts him down and is like, you need to finish this last manuscript so that I can get a promotion or whatever. And then obviously they fall in love.
Oh gosh, I love that. I don't know. I feel like I want to get back into like, I mean, there are vampire books are becoming like more of a thing again. I've noticed.
Yeah,
I think Alexandra Vashti has, Swipe Bite, right? I think that's her book coming out. There's like a few more, like I think coming in the pipeline.
Rosie
and I'm excited
Danon.
because I feel like, Rosie Danon, I'm really excited about hers.
Yeah.
I feel like for a minute, and maybe this is still going to happen, but like paranormal was sort of like, because, you know, a lot of older paranormal books were being like re-released as like romanticises.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, they're paranormals. We have to, so I hope that we're kind of maybe keeping, because these books are definitely not being marketed as romanticises.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping
not.
that we're keeping that alive. Yeah.
Yeah. I think people are leaning more into like the speculative angle, which listeners, I learned this very recently because for years I've been like, what the fuck is speculative fiction? I don't understand. It's basically just another term for fantasy and sci-fi, and like anything that has anything that is either like crazy technology or like some sort of magic, some sort of like supernatural, like all of it's a speculative is like a big
Yeah.
umbrella term, like anything that's not the normal world as we know it or the normal past as we know it.
So they basically are trying to take, again, sort of like what romantasy did, which is taking like another label that non-romance people are into and then being like, but look, it's romance. Yeah. I see.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's paranormal romance.
I think so. Yeah. Everything's speculative, but yeah. Yeah, I do. I mean, I've been saying it for months, for probably longer than that, that like the romantasy bubble's got to pop soon. And like the romantasy bubble pop is coming. Even though, although not quite soon enough, because I am on submission with my first book, Listener, which is a rom-com, which was big like a few years ago.
2 seconds
but
ago,
now
it feels like it.
Yeah, but now everybody, all the editors are like mostly like we want to like acquire romantasy, and I'm just looking at the market and I'm looking at more and more people being like, all these books are the same, nothing is interesting anymore, like blah blah blah, and I'm like, we are reaching saturation point.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think any romantasy that's getting acquired now that's going to be published in 2 years is going to be able to break out.
It's gonna be really hard. I mean, I think, and I still like, I'm currently reading. That's my other one that I'm reading. But it's an arc, so well, yeah, I'll be quiet about it. But like, I do really like it, and I will review it. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a positive, very positive review when I'm done. But it is a shame because, like, I think that it is becoming harder. And this book is really interesting to me because it's part of a series. I mean, I think I can say the first book, Warrior Princess Assassin by Bridget Kemmerer. Really hard last name for me to pronounce, but it's great. It's a great start to a series, and I really love this because it's published by Avon, but it is like an MMF like triad,
Yeah.
which is it's still really kind of hard to find, like everybody's bi, like everybody has like there's an arranged marriage on one side and childhood friends on the other, and there's like trauma explored and like awakenings and also just like queer normativity. And so I'm like, that's really cool to me. And the magic is kind of like as it needs to be, whereas a lot of it is like royal intrigue. It feels very like medieval in a lot of ways, but queer and like a little bit more, again, trauma like sensitive. But I'm like, I think it did well, but I'm still like, this should be, I feel like it's just harder on almost for more unique and edgy books to break out because they're getting swept up in like the same sort of like, oh, here goes more fantasy romance, here's more romantasy, and I'm like, no, this one's different, these are different. But people hear romantasy and they're like their eyes are starting to glaze over, or they want a
which
very
is understandable
thing that they constantly understandable, that's fair. That's not readers' faults or the author's faults, but it is like I think they're either not as interested anymore or they just want the same. And this is fine. Some readers really just want like they search out that's why trope marketing is so successful, right? Like they search out the trope, they search out the type, and they want to read a very similar thing over and over. I cannot relate, but you want what you want, right? And those people aren't going to expand necessarily out to like these sort of more offbeat romantasies, So,
and like I feel like when I first started reading romance, like I was definitely reading a lot of the same books, the same types of books, but like, so yeah, I don't know what the cause is. That could be another episode where the romance genre is going.
It probably will be, I imagine.
All right, let's talk about Priest.
Priest.
Which one could argue is romantasy if we're assuming God as a supernatural character?
Well, I will. Oh, we should probably have
not
like
dunking on religion.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I think that it's totally fine to dunk on religion. I'm like looking for the content warnings, content note. So, because it is, this book I would not call a dark romance as some people would say it is, but in fact, I would kind of say the opposite. But it does contain references to it does contain references to clerical sex abuse, which doesn't happen to a central character in a course several years before the start of the book. Also references a sister's death by suicide. So if you're not comfortable even like listening to people talk third party about stuff like that, totally valid, but be aware. So to be clear, I am completely obsessed with Sierra Simone, Listener. One of my probably top 3 favorite romance authors, but I hadn't reread this in years. So this is kind of like a renewal,
Yeah. I read it for the first time. I'd have to look, like definitely in the last year. And then I reread it for this, obviously, but this book popped off a few years ago. Like it definitely was one of those books that like benefited a lot from the book talk boom, because it came out in like 2016 or so. Like it came out a while ago,
Yeah.
didn't it?
Yeah. I read it before book talk started, I think the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was one of those like backlist like that just exploded. And I think it's obvious why. Like it's about a priest falling in love. And I think a lot of people, that's a hook. You know what I mean? Like you want to talk about a high concept book, that's a hook. And then, you know, obviously we had Fleabag, like that made people hankering. And for a little bit there was like a brief like surge of like priest romances.
More. I want more. There's never enough for me. I have listener, as a disclaimer, I think it would not be correct to call me just like spiritual. I would identify as like a very offbeat Christian who hasn't been to church in a million years and basically has like very progressive views, obviously. Although even the church that I went to beforehand was, from all of my adult life, I've always been like going to pro-choice, like queer friendly, trans friendly churches. They exist, but you have to, you know, be careful.
You gotta hunt.
Haven't been in a long time. Yeah, haven't been in a long time, but I do want to say, like, despite this, I am not Catholic, first of all, and I should have a disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
I have been fetishizing Catholic priests from a very young age. I studied in Florence for a year, and I remember it was like the zenith of like my, you know, not even, I was like 20 by then. I had no excuse, but like I remember my professor being like, "Oh, those are the priests," and like they were young priests in training, jogging for their workouts. Like three of them completely shirtless, and I was like, "This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me." Like,
can they send some of them to the U.S.? Because I have never seen a priest under the age of like 45 in my life,
dude,
in person ever.
The church would say that's the problem, right? But I am not Catholic. I did almost minor in religious studies by accident because I had to take a lot of Catholic related courses in college because my focus, I was an art history major, and my focus was Italian Renaissance art. I focused a lot on like, I was really obsessed with how sensual and like in some cases like borderline or totally like sexual like art around like the Virgin Mary was. So this book was like, I saw it and I was like, this is for me. I have found my people.
And I mean, there's a reason Jesus is always portrayed as like this really cut, like six-pack, like muscled guy when he's like dying on the cross. Like Jesus is also always portrayed as being hot. Like we don't have ugly Jesus anywhere.
I had to really prove how like, again, offbeat my family's brand of Christianity has become. I remember not like a few years ago, I was talking to my mom who's like more religious than I am. And I was like, "Mom, I really think after studying," because I had to study the Bible as like a history text. I was like, "I think that after studying the Bible, there's like no way that Jesus and Mary Magdalene weren't married. Like she was his wife 100%. My mom said, "Well, I hope that he was able to experience pleasure before he died." My mom was like, "I hope hot Jesus got
I hope he got to come."
Yeah, exactly. She was like, Jesus deserved sex. And I'm like, you know what? Actually,
fair enough.
Good point.
Fair enough. That is a form of love. And he is love. That is a Bible. I did memorize enough Bible verses in my youth. Yeah. Listener, my background with religion is I was raised, I guess we were technically Baptist because that the church was like the first Baptist. Although it very quickly switched to like the evangelical hip church names, like when they built a new building. And has gotten steadily more conservative there. Like I've only been to church as an adult to like the Easter and like Christmas Eve services that I go to with like my dad. And like watching my childhood church, like its descent into like conservatism has been tough. But it was not like crazy liberal to begin like, but I did go to Catholic school. I went to Catholic preschool. I did have a Catholic nun as my preschool teacher. Her name was Sister Patricia. She's still my enemy to this day. I think she just didn't know how to handle a little autistic Protestant. And that's not necessarily on her. But I went to like Catholic school, like preschool through third grade. And my third grade teacher was great and was actually fired for being gay. So that's the kind of Catholic school that I went to. And then I did end up going purely by accident to a Jesuit university for college. By accident, in that I applied to them because they didn't require an extra essay. They sent me a fee waiver on the Common App and they gave me a full ride. And I was like, well, shit. I gotta go to this school.
Listen, if have you read Tiffany Rice, her original Center series?
I haven't, no.
That's a big influence on Sierra Simone writing this book.
Mm.
It's not exactly romance, I would say. There's a major love story, but it's like, I don't want people to think like this is the type of erotica that you can pick up and there's like no plot and you're just having fun. It's definitely like erotic literature with like a big story and like a lot of criticism of the Catholic Church. The main character in that one, though, she's the mistress of a Jesuit priest who's very like, I mean, he's bisexual and has a boyfriend, so he's very progressive, but
the Jesuit priests at my university were not like that, I'll tell you that.
right. But I was gonna say, like, you know, I did learn after Googling, following, reading that series, I was like, oh, well, I mean, if I had to go, I guess I'd be a Jesuit. They seem like they're pretty, they're a bit rebellious. So at least you got to the Jesuit.
They're very education focused. I was like a school tour guide, and like I don't forget whether it was like our motto or just like the Jesuit overall motto, but it was like go forth and set the world on fire, like go and like make the world a better place. It was like their whole like modus operandi. Yeah. And like, you know, I had to take a religion class, but like the basic religion class everyone had to take was like the 5 major world religions, and like everybody, you learned about everything. So like it wasn't like, you know, but that is to say that I both have a lot of experience with Christianity in general. I've memorized many a Bible verse in my day. I won awards for memorizing the most Bible verses. I was an undiagnosed autistic child with a hyperfixation. Okay. Really, and I'm also very familiar with Catholicism. Like we had mass once a week in school, you know, like, so, and all that is to say is I believe that this book is very respectful of religion and Catholicism as a whole, which I think that most people who just hear about it probably don't think that, which is fair. That's not an unreasonable assumption. But the book is very, I feel like, very respectful. I feel like that makes sense also because Sierra Simone, the author, was almost a nun. Like she made it like halfway through nun training. I'm sure there's like an actual word for that, but she was like almost a nun. She was like almost going to take her vows and then like decided not to. But so she is very familiar with Catholicism and clearly still has like a lot of respect for the church while also acknowledging the harm it has done past, present, and like how it could be better.
100%. And I think that like every Sierra Simone book, I have not read her entire backlist because I'm saving, I think, one book and then a few short stories because I'm like, there's going to be a day when my brain really needs something new by her, new for me. But pretty much every Bell Brother book, which there's 4 so far, and I think there's going to be a 5th that's not technically a Bell Brother book, but is connected.
And the 4th one's going to be out either like when this episode is out, like it comes out mid-August. So
yeah, August 11th.
Listener.
August 11th. Yeah. Listener, I have read it. It is an absolute banger. It might technically be better than this book in terms of like, which is good because I love it when authors progress. I mean, I'll always have my favorites, but sometimes I'm like, quality wise you up the scales and that's great. But every single book that I've read by her has faith, you know, at the center. Her typically some of her most morally complex characters are also like devout, usually Catholic. She writes what she knows. Although she did say, there is a line in this book that I loved so much because I grew up largely Presbyterian and I still think the progressive wing, the PCUSA, is probably closest to me. If I was going to go to a church, I'd go to like Episcopalian or Presbyterian. But there's a line that he has in here where he goes, spoiler alert, everybody, he goes to Princeton after he leaves the priesthood. And he's like, it's not a Catholic school, but like Presbyterians are fine, I guess. I was like, yeah, thanks. Thank you. That's the right Father Bella for me. Yeah. But yeah, she really does. I think of any author I've read, because I've read authors where I'm like, and I'm very again, very lax in my, a lot of Christians would say I'm not Christian probably, but like in my approach to things, I am not easily offended. I hate Christian nationalism. I don't associate with a lot of
Yeah.
Christians, but there are authors where I've read it and I'm like, oh, this is kind of gross to me. Like it does feel like whether they're fetishizing it or they're writing really dumb flat characters to the point where it doesn't even feel like you're like trying, you know what I mean? You're not even getting into like, these don't even read like Christian
Hmm.
nationalists. They just read like really stupid people.
Yeah.
But this, like her, both her criticism and her love of like whatever faith she feels is so imbued in her books. Like I truly
Hmm.
believe, because there was a controversy surrounding the art promoting her most
Oh
recent
yeah.
book a few weeks back. Yeah, yeah. People were like, who weren't even Catholic. I was like, I can tell you're not Catholic. I can tell that you're like an evangelical. And I
Right.
was like, they were saying that she was blasphemous, all these sort of things, which the book didn't depict Christ in any way, by the way, or the art didn't. I was like so in a way offended by that because I was like, this is the one author, regardless of romance, this is the one author who I read her books and I'm like, oh, this is how I feel. Like this is like the type
Mm.
of faith that like I can
Hmm.
understand, where like her characters, whether they're, you know, like first of all, no Sierra Simone lead is voting Republican, and no Sierra Simone lead is going for Christian nationalism. But like just the like in this book, I was like the carnality of her of of Father Bell, I guess, and his also his ability to like it's like when he wants like I kept on there were several times I think I forgot because the first time I read it I think I was reading more for titillation and this time I was reading more for like analysis. I
Hmm.
was like, man, he like it's like he the way that he looks at her sometimes, it is like you're like, oh, this is like we're supposed to read this as like this is what God's love should be like, but also in this
Yeah.
case, God wants to have sex with her, and I
Right.
find that so
Yeah.
human, but also holy. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's why this book works. This book works so well because it treats religion as valid. And I do think like there is like, I'm going to try to say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm echoing like white, like Christian nationalists, but like in
Mm,
that, like you would never see the kind of mocking of religion of any of the other major religions
mm-hmm.
the way you see it of Christianity. And I think like to an
Yeah,
extent, like I'm all for mocking and
same,
downgrading like bigots, right? I think that
same.
there's a difference
Which
in
a lot
someone
of
who
Christians are.
claims to be Christian and is also using that Christianity as a vessel for bigotry and like hate and harm. And there is someone who like is actually like the like essence of Christianity, which is the essence of Christianity is that you believe Jesus Christ died first. It's like that's it. All
Yes.
forms of Christianity, like that's it. That's all you got to believe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but like the essence of Christianity is like love and kindness and giving to the poor and like turning the other cheek and like all that shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
just curse in the middle of my rant about Christianity.
No,
But I
no.
do
Jesus
like,
would love it.
yeah, I do think that like yeah, Jesus was wearing sandals in the desert. Like the idea that he didn't like stub a toe on a rock anytime, like let's be honest, let's be clear.
Yeah. And who knows what he said in his marriage bed. My mom
Who
hopes that it was
knows?
something impactful.
Impactful. But yeah, like I think yeah, it's really frustrating to read a book that paints anyone as a
Anyone.
caricature,
Yes. Yes.
you
Yeah.
know? Um but particularly something that isn't necessarily like Christianity is not inherently evil. It's what
Yeah.
people do with Christianity that is inherently evil. The same way that Islam is not inherently evil. It's what people
Yes.
do with Islam that is inherent. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Absolutely.
this book works so well because it's like, yeah, like I know I made a joke at the beginning about this being like paranormal because like God is a supernatural character, but like God really is a character. And there's
Yeah.
such a pureness in the way that Tyler, because it's mostly in his monologue, like is like I feel God, and you don't you there's nothing in my mind that was like, oh, that's so silly, like he feels God. Like no, he's like God is like he's another friend, he's a father,
Yeah.
he's like all of that, and it's really really lovely to read.
And it is like I think it's one of those things where like you don't have to like I think that like probably most atheists that I know would read and enjoy this book, provided that they were good with a lot of stuff. But I think that you could read it without having any connection to, like,
Yeah.
I'm not even talking like no history, because it's like it doesn't really matter the way that she writes it, because she is an exceptional writer in my opinion. The way that she writes it, it doesn't matter if you feel it or not. You just know that he feels it and he
Yeah.
believes it. And so she's able to really I think take it out of caricature like it could be, because you're like, oh, even if I don't buy this, because I'm not Catholic, like there's stuff
Yeah.
where I'm like, Father Bell, like I would never, I think celibacy for any reason, if you don't want to be celibate, is ridiculous. But
Yeah.
I know it's important to him. I believe that he believes that this is an important thing, that like he never really even says like in the book, oh, priests shouldn't be celibate. He's just like, I can't be a priest because I love this woman and I can't be celibate. He doesn't say like we
Yeah.
need to reform. There's sort of like a hint that he's like, this is messed up and we should rethink it, but that's not the
He's like,
point,
maybe the
you
Protestants
know?
had it right in something.
Yeah, they had it. We got him on that one. The setup, this is, if you are not familiar with this book somehow, welcome.
Go pause this episode, go read it, come back.
Yes, come back. Tyler is a priest, a Catholic priest, because his sister was sexually abused by a member of the clergy and killed
Mhm.
herself. He found her body, and he essentially is there because, I mean, he does really, I think that, I feel like he genuinely had a calling at the time, and the calling changed, but
Mhm.
he really does believe that like this is the best way that he can reform and like
Mhm.
bring people who feel betrayed by the church back to a better version of it, essentially, like a truer
Mhm.
version. And the thing is, he's kind of not wrong there, that it kind of is
Yeah.
like good members of the clergy, men and women, the church that I grew up in would say that they should both be allowed to do it, but but they should both be allowed to be. But whatever, Tyler. He I think he'd be
Sapphic
fine with that,
priest?
but yes, Sapphic. Oh, um, she hasn't written a Sapphic priest book, but she's written similar things. So
I feel like though, like any religion that allows women priests, like also allows priests to marry. So it's like less of a
yeah,
helpful.
it's less of a taboo. Yeah, nobody would
Yeah.
care about.
But anyway.
Yeah. So he meets, basically the plot of this book is pretty simple. He meets Poppy, who is a non-Catholic, sort of waspy woman who grew up in
Hmm.
wealth, left it all behind, became an exotic dancer, stripper, and
Yeah.
had had a relationship, sort of like a relapse with a not drug wise, but relationship relapse with Sterling, who was a man that she was with, who married another woman, who basically came back to the club, found her rebuilding her life while
Yeah.
separate from her family, and she's not exactly seeking penance for that. She's almost seeking penance for like, I don't regret it. I had
Yeah.
a great time. Like, I feel
Yeah.
bad that he was married, but I had a good time having sex with him. So
And
yeah,
then
that's
yeah, it's
sort of
just
Tyler starts. It spirals from there. They
is
fall in love.
yeah, is her confessor, and then it all, and Sterling obviously comes back, and Tyler is racked with Catholic guilt, like to the extreme. But the fact that she is a sex worker, I think on one hand, like both makes this like more taboo, like as if it already wasn't taboo that it was like a priest falling in love and having carnal relations on the altar. It's also like with a sex worker, but also like so Catholic. Like you brought up Mary Magdalene before. Like there's a lot of theories, historic like listener, that Mary Magdalene, who was one of Jesus's like apostles, one of his followers, there's a lot of belief that she was a sex worker in some way. There's also a lot of belief that her and Jesus were married. So like it's so like the parallel is like so a little bit blasphemous in that Tyler is Jesus in this in this scenario.
This is Mary Magdalene.
But
The idea that Mary Magdalene was a sex worker is often attributed, right, to like the Catholic Church, because
Mhm.
Protestants don't, or at least Protestants who are very strictly biblical don't teach that, because it's not, there's
Mhm.
nothing in the Bible that really indicates that. But
Yeah, it's not in the
a lot of,
Gospels.
yeah, it's not in the Gospels, at least not the mainline ones. But the theory would be that the church wanted her to be portrayed as a sex worker, because if she's a sex worker, then she can't be Jesus's wife. And so I feel like maybe I wouldn't be surprised if Sierra Simone was thinking of that too, where it's like,
Hmm.
because Poppy is a sex worker, not only is he a priest and like standing up for Jesus, but like definitely that could never happen. But then in the end, it's like, and she never regrets it. She loves it. He loves seeing her dance. And they end up married. Like they end up like in this union that they see as holy communion.
Yeah.
And so I do think maybe she was doing some criticism a little bit there,
Yeah.
you know?
And it also like doesn't really matter that she's a sex worker, at least in terms of like the main like climax conflict of the book. Like it never like gets out. Right. This isn't a secret that this isn't like, yeah, like a taboo secret that we're ever worried about like
No.
everyone finding out
He's
that
the
she's a sex
secret.
worker. Right. We
Yeah.
worry about people finding out about Tyler, but we don't worry about people finding out about Poppy. And it never comes out like it's just never a problem. Right. She just likes to dance. Girl likes to dance.
She loves to dance. I mean, Sterling makes a couple pot shots at her, but like that's to be expected because he's the villain
Yeah.
of the book. But there's no, yeah, you're right. There was nothing in the reveal. Like his brother makes a comment when they after he sort of left the church and like Sean, his brother, takes him to a strip club and he's just looking. Tyler's just looking to see where Poppy went, and Sean's like, "Oh, you don't want to dance? Like, hey, like, didn't you used to date a stripper like that?" But it's just kind of like
Yeah.
that. He doesn't even say like he's like that was your ex girlfriend, right? Like when you were a priest, she was a stripper.
Yeah.
It's nothing derogatory. Like
Yeah.
Sean's like, love to be here, but he doesn't disrespect anybody, you know?
Yeah. 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 And that was really cool too in terms of like how progressive it was. But I also so I wanted to discuss how you feel about this and whether you had this thought as well. The fact that Poppy they meet in confession, right? They're in that like traditional confession booth, like priest on one side, confessor on the other, listener. Like you've seen it in a movie, Forgive Me, Father, for I have sinned, whatever. They even make a joke about that. But that is very there's an element to that, and this is in real life too, of like a therapist patient dynamic. Because in real life, like priests and clerical figures, like in Protestantism too, are therapist, like not like
Mm-hmm.
therapists, but they are like considered counselors, like just from a legal like medical perspective they are considered
Oh yeah.
counselors. And so there is an element, and this is like any priest romance, because it's always going to be like one of their confessors, right? Like why are you writing a priest romance about someone who like doesn't go to church? But
Exactly.
there's a therapist patient element to it. And I would not ever be okay with a therapist patient romance. Like that is not for me. That is boundary crossing in a way that I would just not be comfortable with reading or romanticizing. I'd be like, jail for the therapist, please. But I don't have that problem with this. And I don't think most people would either, you know? Like I think most people probably feel similar to the way I do. And I wonder why that is.
I think for one thing, because I am not, I feel like I agree, it doesn't bother me. I think that for one thing, Poppy is not Catholic when this starts, and they don't really continue it. He doesn't like stay her confessor. She does sort of find it over the course of the book, sort of like independently. But I think there's that. Like she isn't Catholic, so there's a level of division, even though he acknowledges it doesn't really feel that way for him. But I also think that there's a part of me that's just kind of like, I think that Sierra Simone writes Poppy in a way where like she is vulnerable, and I do think that there is a power imbalance. Like there is in terms of like that dynamic, but I think that Poppy has like so much power over him in general, and I think that Sierra Simone writes his position of being a priest as being less of something that empowers him and more of something that, even though he loves it, it holds him back. Like he believes in this, but it's almost like it is a shackle for him in some ways. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that there is in some ways he and I'm talking like purely on a fictional level. In real life I'd probably be like that's a no-no. But in the book I almost feel like he is like he's playing as if they have sort of like this like dirty lamb thing, but like what is holding Tyler back? What is weakening Tyler from like getting what he wants? What is in the confrontation with Sterling? Tyler is like because there's a point where like her ex comes up and is basically like, I know what's going on. And they sort of like, Tyler pretends to be like, at first he's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And then the guy's like, I have
Yeah.
pictures, I know what's going on. But he wants to beat him up. He wants to confront him. He wants to be like a brawler. Like he comes from a family of like, Irish Catholic brothers who like are always like tussling and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But he's like, I can't because I have this. And even when this guy is saying, I know that you're like a liar, and essentially, he's still like held back by this idea that he is like a good priest. You know? I think it
Yeah.
disempowers him in a lot of ways. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
also he cries a lot, which I love.
He does cry a lot.
he's he's not like I did a little spiel just before this on Threads because I couldn't hold back. This will be staggered, so it doesn't matter. The 5 people who saw it will forget. He is like, I think that the reason why this book hits so hard, besides all of the taboo stuff, is that, and I think any Sierra Simone book really hits hard like this. Tyler is a dom and he is mean and he is dirty when they're having sex, and like he's rough with her when they're having sex, which she loves, and they do not have this huge like, how to do kink like master course discussion beforehand. They're pretty
Yeah.
natural about it. Like boundaries are never crossed, but like they're also not like step 1, name your safe word. Step
Yeah.
2, like it's never like
Sign the
that.
contract.
Sign the contract. It's never like that. But when they're not in bed together and like having that kind of play, he's so respectful. He like sees her, he likes her. He doesn't just love her and want her. He like likes her as a person.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something where a lot of like DS, dom sub erotic romances get it wrong, is like the dom never drops the dominance. He is never like a person outside. He is always dom first, person second. And in real life, it feels so inhuman because even people in 24/7 dynamics, if they're being healthy, there will be a point where they're like if you're going to a doctor and your doctor says like, you need to take antibiotics, your dom's not going to be like, well, like it'll be like your health comes first. You know what I mean? If they're
Right.
like a safe
Right.
person. So, and they're still a human being. And I think a lot of books don't feel like that. And Tyler does. And that's why it doesn't feel as the power dynamic doesn't feel icky, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe I'm off. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I was like, I don't have like an answer for that. Like I also think like there is an element in general of just like not taking religion as seriously. Like I wonder like
Mhm.
if I were like a devout Catholic, if it would feel a lot harder for me to accept.
I think that like because in like a lot of Sierra, so like her heroes really range on like the morality scale. Like you have somebody like Tyler, and then you have somebody like Mark Trevena from like her most recent series, who's like a very bad man. Or like even Tyler's brother Ryan is like not a good man. Doesn't mean I don't love him, but I think I think that she was very careful to portray Tyler as somebody where you're like, even if you as a Catholic feel like he is doing something really wrong and sacrilegious, which I respect, that's valid for you to feel that way if you read this
Mhm.
book and feel that way. But I do think that's like a good man. That's somebody where you're like, he is flawed, but like, I obviously wouldn't
Mhm.
I wouldn't want to know what they're doing in the bedroom. But like Tyler's the type of guy who in a lot of ways you're like, oh, if your sister married Tyler or your brother married Tyler, you would be like, okay. Like you wouldn't know what's going on behind closed doors. You wouldn't know about all their consensual kinky shit. So you'd be like, wow, that's a really good guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it also helps that like she is clearly, yes, she's genuinely getting something off her chest, especially in the first one. But
Yeah.
also like Poppy pretty early on, like what she says, like that she Googled his picture because she was like, what does he look like? Like there's I'm not saying she's not genuinely confessing, but she's also like getting off on knowing that like because her confessions pretty quickly are like, let me tell you about how I pulled my panties to the side and like let me like she is like very explicit about her feelings and she knows that he's getting hard. Like she knows because
Yeah.
it's also like
Yeah.
even if they're a priest, like you would have to not be interested in women at all to like listen to Poppy's confession and not be affected in
Yeah.
some way. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Well, that was like my question also was like, at what point does like Poppy know what she's doing? Because like I don't think she walks into
very
that church
early.
like the first day being like, I'm gonna get a priest hard. But like
No, no.
then like the next time, like she does masturbate in the stall next to him. Like
Yes.
she does come to church without underwear, like come to confession not wearing underwear.
Listen, as soon as she saw that picture of him on the website, she was like, all right, all right, all right. Like,
she's like, Father Water Waste is gonna be wasted no more, which is so funny.
yeah. And then she runs into him when he's running around shirtless listening to Britney Spears. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there is a point where I'm like, and again, I'm not Catholic, so like, sorry everybody, but if I were her, it's one thing if they're just like a regular ordinary priest. If it's this guy, you only live once. I'm sorry. I know in my heart deep down, if I had the opportunity, 100%, 100%, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I would go for it. I completely endorse everything that she does in this book, but she is for sure like, even if she's not like, even if she feels once she, I think, because originally it's also important that Poppy doesn't, she's not Catholic. She doesn't have, she wants someone to confess to, but she doesn't have a deep attachment to the religion. So I think that her guilt over, because she starts feeling bad about taking him away from the priesthood. And I think that that's only after a while when she starts to realize how important it is to him and how real it is and how real it's becoming for her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like she's starting to feel an attachment to the spirituality. I don't think she sets out to make him break his vows, but I don't think that she's that worried about it initially.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so which is fine and valid.
Which is fine. Which is fine. Yeah. Tyler really is though, like he has like just the most wild lore. Like he's the guy like your college group chat texts about. Like, dude, you remember Tyler? Like he was into BDSM in college. Like now he's a priest, dude. Like, oh my God, like look at this article I just found about Tyler. He's like quitting the priesthood because he got caught fucking a woman. Like, God. And then someone's like, well, you know, like he always loved getting his dick wet. Like, he's literally like college group chat legend.
Can you imagine? There's definitely some woman in Tyler's college experience where, like, to this day, because he's still like, you know, he's like late 20s, so it hasn't been too long since college. So there's definitely a woman who unexpectedly in college had, like, to this day at that point, the best sexual experience of her life with Tyler. And imagine the mind fuck when you're like, wait a second, he became a priest. Like he was gagging me with my panties and he became a priest. Like you hear about people who dated the Pope, you know what I mean? Where they're like, wait, Bob is the Pope now? Like that's like, it's crazy. Like I think that would send me on like, I think I'd have to take a sabbatical from work. I'd be like, I need to go on like a 3-month voyage. Like, what did I do?
I need to go hike the Camino. I need to just go drink lots of wine in Spain.
I need to do what Tyler does after he leaves the priesthood, except a lot more single women in her 30s, like chilling and a lot less volunteering. A lot more eat, pray, love. Because he does have the craziest lore. That is kind of the funny thing is that he's younger, but I feel like if it wasn't Sierra Simone, I'd be like, okay, so he like did all this kinky shit in college, sure. But Sierra Simone makes you go like, yep, 100%, I got it. I understand what you're saying.
Yep, agreed.
And the sex in this book, like I do think she writes my favorite sex scenes like of all time. Both because I think they're very well written in terms of character and making the relationship feel real, and also because they're hot as shit. Like, they're so hot. Oh my God.
Though there are parts of it that did make me laugh. Like, the first time they have sex, when he does, like, just the tip. I was oh my God, Tyler. Like, and then it gave me, like, Mormon soaking vibes. Do you know Mormon soaking?
Yes. Oh, I know Mormon soaking. Half my family is Mormon. I'm very familiar.
For those of you not familiar, listener, I feel like I've definitely brought it up. We've definitely talked about it before. But for anyone who hasn't listened to whatever episode we talked about it before, Mormon soaking is when like they put it in and then like your friends like wiggle the mattress so that like you can jump on it like so that you can like fuck without actually fucking, and then it's not a sin. Personally, I think they should just go the good old evangelical way of like in the ass and that not being the sin. So, but whatever.
Mouth, ass, hands, it's fine.
Yeah. But he was like, let me just put in just the tip.
Just the tip. I was
Tyler.
Like, okay. I actually think she showed a lot of restraint and a lot of awareness of the differences in denominations and religions by not having him fuck her ass first. She was like, no, that's a Protestant thing. They're the ones who use anal as an excuse. He's going to do just the tip. Although they do have anal sex later, and he uses the holy oil to
Yeah.
lubricate her asshole, and it's
It's
amazing.
phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And you know what? It's what God would have wanted. When he finds her on the when he finds her on the altar and she's like having a spiritual experience and like crying, whatever, TM. And he's like, I feel God here. I immediately was like, I feel God in this Chili's.
Yeah. I feel God in this Chili's 100%. Like sometimes Tyler was like most of this book is from his perspective, and for a lot of authors, if it's like largely male POV and an MF romance, I'm like,
It is crazy that like we almost get exclusively Tyler's POV. Like we only get
yes.
Poppy's confessions. Like we don't get anything else.
Yeah. And these books are kind of unique for her on that light, because most of her books, like it may start like in her throuple books with like one part of the throuple, and then book 2 is the second part joins in. But by the third book, you have all 3, and they have,
Yeah.
And her first 3 priest books are largely like, I think you kind of get creeping more and more POVs from each character. But the 4th priest book, the one that's not out yet, Devil, is straight up dual POV.
Yeah.
And I find that very interesting.
Or it is out now, listener, by the time you listen to this episode, when we're recording.
Yes.
But when it's out, when you're listening to this, Devil is out. Buy it at the bookshop.org, like in the description of this episode.
I know that there are a lot of people who like on threads, they'll be like, I don't like male POV because I just don't like these horn dog men. And I'm like, I love that there are points where most of the book I'm like, yeah, Tyler, you're really hitting with this spirituality. You understand the conflict. And there are points where I'm just like, you are so horny that you are like babbling nonsense in your head right now, and I eat it up. Like it's very intentional. Like
my catnip is like a man-made pathetic. Like why I want to see, like, yeah, I don't want to read a male POV if he's not pathetic, but when he's pathetic, it's delicious. Like, and like Tyler continually bringing up his like almost women's study minor every time he has like a mildly like chauvinistic thought.
Yes, so he's like, I am a feminist, but then he's also like when their first like, I guess, in church sexual encounter where like he basically eats her out from behind, which is, by the way, it's her first time getting gone down on. And I'm just saying that like on an altar from behind for your first time with cunnilingus, like a lot of people would say just from behind is a little crazy for your first time.
That's
no
crazy.
Judgment to anybody. On an altar, and he's like talking, he's like, if anybody walked in, they would see my face and her ass right now. And then and he's so into it. And then afterwards, she's like, that was the first time that anybody ever ate me out. And he's like, all right, sick inside. But then he's like, that was very anti-feminist of me. He's like, hell yeah.
But he's so excited because he's like, I wasn't the first to dick her down, but I was the first to eat her out.
Which I love too, that he's like, technically that's kind of more important. And I'm like, you know what, you're right. You really got it.
And that it was a privilege, Tyler, and you should be grateful.
It was a privilege. Yeah. There are so many points where he's like, at like something horny, and then he's immediately like, I held myself back with my feminist like restraint.
my almost women's study minor, my 1 credit away from a women's study minor.
Me with my religious studies minor that I was 1 credit away from. I'm like, man, we're the same.
Wow, twins. I also thought it was really funny. This is like a little bit of just a sidebar. The fact that he's a huge Walking Dead fan is like obviously very like of its time, like 2016, but also just like the walking, like the like wink wink nudge nudge of like him being a Catholic priest and being a Walking Dead fan, like being a fan of a show about people coming back to life.
Oh, I didn't even make that connection. That makes so much sense.
It's very funny to me. There's a lot of Jesus is not the only resurrection in the Bible. Remember, listeners. So it's just like very funny. I can't help but feel that was like a little bit on purpose, that she was like,
I'm sure. And it's also like he watches The Walking Dead because he also says in the beginning of the book that he's not even supposed to masturbate, like technically speaking.
Yeah.
Which I think is, listen, everybody, celibacy, I don't think that you should be doing that if you don't want to, but like whatever, respect. to tell people that they can't masturbate, I do think crosses a line for me. I'm like, no, that's truly between you and God.
You can blame Augustine for that. Saint Augustine, I'm pretty sure does get a call out in the book.
Yeah.
He's the
Yeah.
reason the Catholic Church is like so anti-sex, because like he fucked a
Yeah.
lot, and then his mom was like, no, don't fuck a lot anymore, and he was like, you're right, mom, and then made it everyone else's problem for the rest of the
Mommy
time.
issues, classic. But Tyler, I think he mostly watches The Walking Dead. It feels like he just doesn't want to like have time to like jerk off or do anything like that, because like it's like otherwise he's like doing push-ups, he's hanging out with an old lady, he's hanging out with Father Jordan Brady, who I believe will be book 5
Oh,
and is
phenomenal.
clearly hot as hell.
His name
Also,
is
there were kind of
Jordan also.
vibes.
Like you don't waste that kind of name on like a side character. Like, I'm sorry.
No, no.
That's a romance hero name.
I was like, maybe it could happen in another life. Like I was like, Tyler and Jordan definitely have like a chemistry, but I think Jordan has a chemistry with like everybody he encounters.
Everyone. Yeah.
In her
Yeah,
verse,
Jordan.
he like crosses series.
Yeah, Jordan is his friend, listener. Jordan's like super spiritual, like really he and God are BFFs. God regularly talks to it. Like Tyler shows up to like confess that he's been like fucking someone, and Jordan's like, you've been fucking someone, haven't you? And Tyler's like, how did you know? And he's like, God told me, obviously. And like there was never a doubt in my mind that I was like, yeah,
No.
Jordan, God did tell you. Like, that's right. You do have conversations with God.
Yes, there's a point in her Thornchapel series, and this is not really a spoiler. This is just like a little off scene that had basically no impact on the plot. Later,
Right.
but I think it was just her sort of winking. Maybe if I reread it, I'd be like, this was plotful, but whatever. There's a Catholic priest in that one who faces temptation and also breaks his vows. You'll
Catholic.
know this very early on. Classic. But there's a point where he's having like because he's like a zealot Catholic, and
Yeah.
he's like freaking out and having like basically sort of like a fugue state. And then like Father Jordan Brady shows up and he's like, hey, and then you're just kind of like, bye. Like that's Jordan Brady is here for some reason. He shows up in the third book in this series, and which is also about a monk who's like being tempted because the Bell brothers just always are doing that shit.
Great.
And Jordan Brady kind of is like, I don't know that the church is like, I think, I believe in my connection with God, and like, I don't think we need to like have a strict rule following church. I'm like, Jordan Brady is fucking like crazy somewhere,
Oh
or he
yeah.
wants to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there is like a lot to Tyler that like is a massive dork, to be honest. Like every time Poppy does something like sexually forward, he's like, holy shit. Like
I'm like, are you sure you were like a sex god in college? It
he
feels a little
definitely
bit
didn't
like
get a
you're a
good
virgin.
striptease. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't fuck like one.
No, well, yeah. Well, it's romance, so even when they're virgins, like they're innately good at bed.
Yeah.
In bed.
Yes, exactly. They're sensitive. But there's that point where like she does a striptease for him. Like she basically, it's funny because I felt like this was actually very true to life. When they're kind of having issues and they're on the outs, and he's like sort of like pouting because he feels like maybe like she might have been tempted to leave him for her ex-boyfriend, who's kind of like, oh, I'm in my feelings about it. She's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna give you a piece of pussy to calm you down. I'm gonna take you to the strip club. I'm gonna do a whole dance. And he's like, wow, this is the craziest thing ever. And I'm like, Tyler, you really like are not like that. You're not that crazy, man.
Yeah. But the one time when they fuck in his house for the first time, and then like she like Irish goodbyes next morning, and then she like doesn't talk to him for like a week or whatever, and this is when he's like in his feelings, but he's like concerned about her, he's like upset, and he's like, my hurt pride over her leaving had nothing to do with it. And I was like, sure, Jan, sure.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
I'm just concerned that she's gonna backslide to her shitty ex-boyfriend. Like, I'm
That
definitely
would be
not
her
mad
choice,
that
but I don't want that. She left. Like, I'm a
no,
feminist.
he's not text. I had a women's studies major almost.
I mean, it is like he's constantly like at war with like trying to be like a good man, and like it's funny to like see the contrast, like because his brother is just like, I have no such concerns.
Yeah.
Like his brother Sean, and like he Like Tyler's younger than Sean. Like I always forget that, but like he's like my older brother Sean, and Sean's like, let's go out for pussy. You know what I mean? Like it's like that sort of like yeah, like he and Sean and is the hero of the book Sinner people, and y'all should read that one. Sean falls in love with his best friend's little sister who is about to become a nun. I think that that's part of just how like if you because okay, there's a movie I'm suddenly having a breakthrough. There's a movie that I watched during my my priestathon of years ago during COVID, which is about it stars Gael Garcia Bernal, a beautiful man, and it is Spanish language. I believe it's set in Mexico, but it's called the English title I believe is like The Crimes of Father Amaro. And
Mm-hmm.
in that one, he's like a very young priest who's sent to like the small town, and he falls in love. I think he believes it's love. There's definitely a lot of lust. It's not healthy. This is not a romance. It's
Yeah.
tragedy. But like he falls for this young woman. At points, he even like dresses her up. She's pretty young. He dresses her up at points in like the Virgin Mary. She's
Oh,
probably like, and he's very young. When I say like it's like they're probably she's like probably around 18. He's probably around 22. You know what I mean?
okay.
So
Okay.
it's still not okay, but like but that one is about the abuses of the church and like the hypocrisy of the church. And I feel like that's because even though he's young and he clearly made a mistake by becoming a priest and he wants to be like a good person, but like he is corrupted by the church. This is a church critical film,
Yeah.
in every way. But it's like his initial entrancement with that woman and his initial love and like his feeling that she is like it becomes corrupted because he puts her on that pedestal. Like he thinks of her as like similar to the Virgin Mary, but also he wants to fuck
Mm,
her. And like that's he is devoured by like his obsession. Whereas like Tyler's faith doesn't feel like an obsession to me. It feels like something that's deeply held. It doesn't feel like a fixation or like a fetish for him, you know?
yeah.
He just feels like your average, very horny man who shouldn't have become a priest and instead should have looked into ways. At the end, he's like, there are so many ways that a layperson can work with the church. And I'm like, Tyler, this would have been a good thing to Google before you decided to become a priest. Like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, Tyler. We know. We know.
The average person looks that up before they become a priest, Tyler.
He's
Like,
like,
what the
how will I won't be able to do the pancake breakfast anymore for like low income food insecure people. And I'm like, I want you to look around you, Tyler, and recognize that every other person helping out at the pancake breakfast is not a member of the clergy.
Yes, Tyler, if the Presbyterians are good enough, we do that all the time. You can go do it. The Presbyterians would be like, sure, like go ahead. You don't even have to join. We're not that emotional about it. Like, and I know that there are people I've read comments where people get frustrated because they're like, all he had to do was leave the church. But I'm like, that's not all he had to do because he joined the church because he didn't go to therapy. That's what
Yes.
happened.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
he did
trauma.
turn to religion as therapy. And it's interesting because the rest of his family turned away from religion. Like so he
Hmm.
grew up Catholic and they all like none of them is like practicing anymore because of what happened to their daughter slash sister. And everyone was initially very angry at Tyler for going into the church. But yeah, men will do anything but go to therapy. Basically, the lesson of this is men will do anything but go to therapy.
What do you think of like, so I've known that some people read this book and they feel like Poppy is like a sort of like flat sex doll type of character. And I suspect that you don't feel exactly like that. But what do you think of like that? Since she's not the POV character, it is kind of tricky, right? That you're barely in
Yeah.
her head.
Yeah.
What do you
I
think?
think Poppy just has a lot less growing that she needs to do. I think she's already gone through her trial by fire, right? Like she's dating Sterling, she has the big Wall Street job, she's like, chasing her parents' approval and then like Sterling sends her a wedding invite to someone else and she like loses it. She like graduates from whatever and then like leaves. And I think like that was her book, right? That we just didn't read Poppy's book. Poppy doesn't have, and like she has some growth to do in terms of like her own spirituality and like fully processing everything that happened with Sterling and like finding like a new identity for herself. But like that's not necessarily something that she needs to do through romance, right? So like I don't like Poppy's already fully realized, right? She gets to dance. She has a really good paying job. She also does accounting for the strip club. She enjoys what she does. She's developing a community. And then, spoiler alert, listener, like when the third act they break up, she like putzes off to New York, starts like a low income dance studio there. Like she's fine. You know what I mean? Like, and like it'd be great if she had Tyler, but like she's already done it. She's already developed. So I don't need, like, I guess she's flat in that way, in that she doesn't have the character arc that Tyler does. But like it's because she's already had it and we hear
Yeah.
about it. And like I don't need to also see it. There's not room for both of those.
Yes. Yeah.
In this book, which is a pretty short book. Like it was like 8 hours, listener. Like
Yeah.
it's a pretty quick read.
I think that's a really good, I wouldn't have been able to verbalize it in that way, but when you were talking, it reminded me, I need to find this creator, but there was a really short but powerful, I think, little review of Lord of Scoundrels that somebody who I don't think reads romance initially was like reading it and giving it a good review, but they described Jessica as like they were like, Jessica's not like Jessica is what you would technically call a, like, I don't think they use this exact words, but basically like a stagnant character, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. When her purpose, she's where she needs to be. Like, yes, she has like a little bit of growth. She has some obstacles to get through and like some challenges, but Dane is the one who really needs to work. And I think that that's what's happening here. And I think that there are a lot of people who believe that every romance has to have a heroine who has like this massive, and I think we've discussed this before recently, where it's almost like it's come to the point where like the heroes are so perfect and the heroine's so messy and she has to have, but she's the only one that has this growth, and like that's framed as feminist. But I'm like, Poppy's not perfect. Poppy has like, and she has her flaws, and she's sort of come to terms with who she is, flaws and all.
Yeah. There were times where I was absolutely frustrated with Poppy, like especially at the end, like when they're separated for a very long time. And I was really, and that was because Poppy assumed some things that she shouldn't have assumed, but also was not unreasonable in assuming. And I was very frustrated with Poppy for that.
Yeah.
But like, Poppy's not perfect.
Yeah, but she doesn't have to, like, she is somebody who I feel like the first time around I didn't remember her as much, but this time when I read it, I was like, oh, this is somebody, like, I really admire how much she knows herself. She feels like a grown-ass woman.
Yeah. Which helps, again, back to that, like, therapist-patient, like, confessor-confessee dynamic, like, the fact that she's so self-possessed helps fix that power imbalance.
Yeah. And she's very blunt with him. Like, she's kind of like, at points, like, he's like, oh, he's getting in his guilt thing about, like, the kind of sex that they have, which is very rough and, like, isn't, again, they don't do, like, a kink safety 101, which I honestly find very refreshing, because I don't necessarily think that always comes off as natural. But she is kind of like, I know what I like. I know what I want. You're not ruining me. And frankly, there's an implication where she's kind of like, it would be sort of insulting for you to think that, like, by smacking my ass during sex and, like, calling me a dirty girl and a slut and things like that, that you're somehow, like, you have the power to, like, fuck with my head when, like, I am an adult woman who's done all my journey and my growth. You know, she's like, you don't have that much power over me, you know?
Yeah. And you bringing up the, like, again, like the messy woman and like the perfect hero and like the way we're sort of seeing that trend, like it does remind me of something that, like, I has been, like, in the back of my mind, and it sort of like came from when Sarah McLean talked about writing Day of the Duchess, and how, like, the initial draft of Day of the Duchess, which, again, listener, for those of you that don't know Day of the Duchess, like, he cheated on her a few books earlier. They, like, got married, it went to shit. This is like a second chance, like, marriage in trouble romance. Like, she's come back for a divorce, whatever. It's historical. It's great. Highly recommend. But Sarah McLean has talked about how the initial draft of that book involved them kind of starting from a lot earlier, where it was more of like the heroine having to do the work of, like, fixing the hero, or like, so, like, she's like, that's how it, like, turned out. Like, it turned out where, like, this is this imperfect man, and, like, she had to fix him. Whereas in the final draft of the book, he goes through his journey of, like, fixing himself, and then he's got, like, a little bit more to go, but, like, that's the to go that they have to go to, like, together, like, right, they have to develop together as a couple. So he's already done most of the work. She doesn't have to do the work of fixing him. And that struck me as, I think, a lot of possibly the baseline of the reason we're seeing this trend of like the perfect hero is that authors are, to an extent, understandably like shying away from writing books in which the perfect angel woman has to fix the man to make him love, like I can fix him is like a very, that's a trope, right? And that was very much like the trend, I think, like 20 years ago, like in earlier romance and like the beginning, like certainly like at the start of romance, and then also just like more recently, like
like 50
that's
Shades of Grey. Yeah.
That's been like most of romance. And so I think it's just like the pendulum swinging back in the other direction, and like unfortunately, like that's how pendulum works. Like eventually it's going to go too far and then it's got to like recorrect, and I think we're getting to the point where it's like kind of reaching the apex of its swing. But I think that is part of like, the attempt to be feminist by writing a book in which the woman does not have to do labor to fix a man.
And I think that a lot of like Sierra's books in the past have often had like, she really likes a self-possessed heroine who's like she doesn't write a lot of like, I mean, at least maybe in her more recent sort of rom-com contemporaries co-authored with Julie Murphy, which are all good. She writes maybe a little bit more like quirky, somewhat sloppy heroines, but a lot of her erotic romances, the heroines are often like, she loves a rich girl, she loves this, she loves that. But like, I think that there is a level to which like she likes somebody who I think, and I can see why, because when she writes so many BDSM romances, whereas like primarily if a man and a woman are involved, the man will be like the dom and the woman will be the sub, or at least there's some switchiness going on at the most. But I can see where like she has wanted you to realize, because I think she probably was shying away from that 50 Shades of Grey where it was like the heroine's so vulnerable and she has to fix him, and her heroines often aren't. But in her most recent series and in her most recent book, like the devil one, the heroines are, I'm realizing, like in incredibly different ways, they are much more like they're early in their journey. They are like, they're not being fixed by the heroes, but they are a little bit less together than most of her heroines have been. And so I guess maybe there's a bit of like if you look at like Poppy and you read like the book that will be out by now, Devil, the heroines couldn't be further apart. Poppy and Birdie are like completely different women.
Yeah.
And I think Poppy has more in common with the heroine of Sinner book 2, even though the heroine's so much younger and stuff, and that they both are like, they know themselves in a lot of ways. And I do think maybe there was some feeling of needing Poppy to be self-knowing 10 years ago, where like maybe she didn't have confidence that the audience would not see Poppy as a victim,
Yeah.
So
I think I think the fact that this was published almost 10 years ago. Is it 20? I keep saying 2016, but
I think it is around there. It's around there because in her author's note, like her forward for the special edition, she actually was writing New Camelot and then had this idea.
It's 2015.
Yeah, there you go. It's kind of funny that she did that, because I would say that Priest is like her, if you want to start with her erotic romances, Priest is your entry point. It is like definitely erotic, but it's nothing like, unless you're Catholic and you take all of this extremely seriously, which respect, there's nothing too crazy that's happening here. Whereas like her New Camelot series is like both bonkers, and also the characters are much more morally like gray in a lot of ways. So it's funny. I almost feel like this. I'm like, this is interesting that you felt compelled, because I'm like, this feels like it would have come first,
Yeah. Well, I think it makes sense. Like, when you're like writing something, like there may be like, even if you're not consciously thinking it, there's like a subconscious, like, I don't know that I'm there yet, that I can write this successfully. Cause this came out before New Camelot, right? So like she hadn't finished. So she probably was like writing New Camelot and then was like, maybe just subconsciously like, okay, I need to like sidestep, hone these skills a little bit more, and then like come back. And she decided to do that with a priest romance, which valid.
Valid. This is something, a PSA. I often see this book sold as dark romance. It is not. I think unless you see this as truly blasphemous, in which case I don't think you're going to pick this up. It is, there are a lot of heavy feeling. It almost feels like to me when people are like, this is dark romance, it almost feels like that's kind of a sign that, like, as is the case with a lot of romance recently, we are mushing too many things together. This is taboo. It is
Mm-hmm.
taboo for a Catholic priest to have sex.
Yeah.
But that is not inherently dark. Taboo is not inherently. She does write dark romance. I've read it, but like taboo is because his yes, he's breaking a taboo, but a lot of the world would say, "Damn, you're only being human," you know?
Right. You're only being the way that God made you. Right. And I think that is
Exactly.
kind of the thesis of this book is that, even if you are religious, like God made humans to be a certain way and he wouldn't make humans to be that way if he thought it was like inherently evil.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. He's just doing what God wanted him to do, which is
Yeah.
fuck really hard, eat pussy, in
Yeah.
church.
And use holy oil as ass lubricant and valid.
Honestly, I think that God would be like, "Hey, I'm just glad you were lubing up." Like God would
Correct.
be
Yeah.
like, "Correct."
We don't want any like pink socking out here.
Oh my God. I've never heard it put that way. I've never heard it put that way.
That was like the first horrible term that I heard that I learned in high school of like friends being like, "Ooh, look up what this be," you know,
I've heard of rosebudding, but I haven't heard of
pink
pink
sock.
socking.
Anyway, but speaking about how Poppy is kind of already fully realized, something that I really did like about this book is that Tyler chooses to leave the priesthood of his own volition. And it does like he does it, it's the classic romance thing where like he does it like right before he gets exposed, but like he does it because he realizes like yeah, this is what God is calling me to do. I do want to leave. Like I'm not leaving just so I can get pussy. I'm leaving because I want Poppy's pussy. Which is a paraphrase of something he like exactly thinks.
There is something really funny in the sequence that like was both like, oh, Tyler, but it was also like in terms of the sequence funny to me where like he's like, I love this woman. I need to, because initially when they are threatened by her ex, like her ex has pictures of them kissing. They're
Yeah.
like, we're just gonna like basically call, like we're gonna play chicken with this guy, like we're calling his bluff. They just sort of continue on, but they're Tyler's like, this is the woman for me. I love her so much. I'm gonna propose. He goes and
Oh my
does
god.
he like picks the flowers. He like does like some yarn in like the church preschool or
Yeah.
something like that. Like, and he shows up and he's like got his flowers. And then he's like, he sees her kissing Sterling through the window, which she does intentionally to like sort of ward him off because she knows he's about to like pull this shit. He's like, oh, but before then, he had called his bishop and left him a voicemail where he was like, hey, crazy, kind of complicated, but like, I'm not gonna be a priest anymore. I'm resigning. Call me back. Bye. And then he goes to propose to
Bye.
her. He talks to Father Jordan. And then he's like, when the bishop calls him again, he's like, hey, I'm not so sure about that voicemail that I sent you because he's freaking out. He's like, maybe I need to take backsies that voicemail.
And the bishop is like, okay, you don't have a choice now.
Yes, yes. The bishop does say it does kind of remain his choice. The bishop's like, you got outed, but like we could relocate you to another church. Which in retrospect was also kind of a criticism because that is something that the church probably to this day
Yeah, definitely
definitely
still
more
does.
yeah, definitely still does where like when there's a scandal, priests are often not defrocked or excommunicated or whatever you think is happening. They're often put far away in a different church where nobody's heard about what they did. And Tyler does choose to not do that. I think it would have been valid if he'd chosen to do that because he didn't do anything that was like he had sex with a woman and
Right.
fell in love. He did not do anything criminal. He was not a bad
Right.
person.
He's also taking into consideration like the church that he is at did also have like a sex scandal. Like I don't I think it's like the priest was abusing like altar boys is what I don't it's not they don't really go into detail, but I think that that was like from what we do know like that's what it seems to be. So he's very conscious of like I have been spending like however much time rebuilding the trust of this community and this congregation, and now I'm going to do the same thing. And it's funny because like literally at the first time we meet Millie, the like fast
This
talking
cool lady
older
friend.
woman, like cool as fuck, who calls him father. What a waste because he's so handsome. Like one of the first conversations they have is her like essentially being like, listen, if you wanted to fuck someone, that's totally valid.
Mm-hmm.
Of her being like giving him permission. And even at the end, like when he gets out, like Millie figures it out before the pictures get leaked. And she's like,
Yeah.
listen, obviously you're horny. She's just like, get it
Yes.
together. Like,
Yes.
pick one and stick with it. She's like, I'm not mad. I just want you to pick one.
Yes. Yes. And it almost feels like, in a way, she never says, like, just go off and fuck. But, like, I get the vibe from her that she's kind of like, people would look the other way if you were having sex, right? But, like, her thing is, like, because there's a point where she just sort of calls out, like, I see two people in love, right? Like, she's like, that's where it becomes like, you can, people, because let's be real, 100% priests have mistresses, like, and not mistresses, lovers, and like
The
they have,
fucking Renaissance is filled with like the Pope giving like all his bastard children like
yes,
titles and shit.
yes, Sterling references it at one point. He's like, I came here expecting, he says Alexander Borgia, it would have been Rodrigo Borgia, Pope Alexander Sextus. I studied a lot about that.
Actually.
Actually, it would have been, but I expect Sterling to not get it right. But he's referencing the Borgias, who were like notorious. The Pope had
Yeah.
children who were openly acknowledged. These children became priests, like whatever, all this type of stuff. But he says, I loved this too. I felt so seen. He says, but I found an Arthur Dimmesdale or Dimmesdale, and that is the Reverend, not Catholic, but Puritan in the Scarlet Letter, which a lot of people hate reading the Scarlet Letter, but I read that in middle school.
Yeah.
I felt so alone because they were like, this is so boring. And the Scarlet Letter is a book. You know why she has a Scarlet Letter, everybody? They should lead with this. She has the woman in the Scarlet Letter has a Scarlet Letter, is shamed by her society because she has a child out of wedlock after her husband disappeared, and it is extremely obvious from day one that the father is a local reverend and he feels constant shame because not only did he father that child with this married woman, he loves her and wants to still be with her. And the book is all about like this shame and like he's constantly tormenting himself with shame. And so that's so true. This is not like Tyler does not want to like revel in the excess. His problem is that he's in love.
Yeah. He's like, I don't just want a woman. I want this woman and I want a life with her and I want to get married to her and I want to have children with her. Like, but he doesn't even leave for Poppy. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's obviously part of his decision. But when we see like he's walking through it in his mind, the decision making before he calls his priest, like when he finally like hears the okay from God, he's like, like I think this was a good thing for me to do for a short period, but like it's not the best way for me to like make a difference with my faith anymore. Like he's like, I want to do other things. I don't or like whatever. He's like, God is calling me in a different direction. And like obviously Poppy is part of that reasoning, but like it is very much like he's like, I want to do this even without Poppy. And obviously he changes his minds when he's like wallowing in his feelings after he thinks she's cheated on him. But like it's very much for him. And I think that's so important in any romance. Like anytime a character makes a big decision that is in part motivated by their relationship, it needs to also be for them. Otherwise, I'm going to be like, but what if they get divorced one day or like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a Susan Elizabeth Phillips book called Match Me If You Can that was like written over 10 years ago. And there's a moment that the hero like sort of confesses to the heroine that like he wants to marry her. It's like, and it's even framed as kind of like a big gesture from her family, but he basically doesn't express like how much he loves her, right? And she
Mm-hmm.
says like that's not good enough for her. And there's like a good like 30 to 50 pages after that in which she has to do a lot more. And I remember being like, when I finished that book, I was like, a lesser author, and I hate to say it, a lot of authors in Tamer era would have cut the last 30 to 50 pages of that angst
Yeah.
and like him working on himself with them being alone. And she would have been like, thank you so much. Like, we're in love now. You've owned, like, you made a big gesture for my family. That's
Yeah.
all you need to do. And it felt like when I was reading this, I was like, a lesser book and a lesser author would have been Tyler going like, Poppy, I love you, and I'm leaving the church, and Poppy being like, yay. And like there wouldn't have
Yeah.
been all that separation. Both of them working on themselves in different ways. Like his is
Yeah.
more of a hard, typically like labor intensive journey, but her starting her dance studio and like being
Yeah.
away, and he finds her in church. Like she has really, like that was a
Yeah.
real, that's another thing. She didn't, it wasn't about him. She genuinely did find a
Yeah.
spirituality for herself.
Yeah.
We needed them to be apart. And that's, I think a lot of people get pained by that, like by that third act breakup. And they're like, why did
It
that have to happen? That was so stupid. It had to happen or else
it has to
the growth
happen.
wouldn't be real.
I am a big proponent of third act breakup. And listen, like there have definitely been books that I've read that didn't have a third act breakup that I thought were
Of
wonderful.
course.
But I think 90% of romance novels should have a third act breakup because it's so crucial to the HEA. You don't get the HEA without like I'm not I it's the easiest, most straightforward way to show that these people will be able to weather any storm.
And you know what? Actually, like as I was asking you, like, is she a flat character to you? Is she this? He thinks that she cheated on him. He is legitimately mad. He is like heartbroken. He is like, how could she do this to me? But you see, after he leaves the church, he's still looking for her. He's still asking around. He's still, to me, like you kind of needed. You're like that's where she's taken off the pedestal. Even if she didn't do the extent of what he thought, that's when she
Mm-hmm.
betrays him. And the
Yeah.
fact that he's still like she is off her pedestal now, and he's still like, God, I need her. Like God, I love her. I
Yeah.
think that that is
Yeah.
like that was necessary as well. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, and because he's very much like, I forgive her. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I want her anyway. And even if she did that, like, whatever, even though she did give him like a whole monologue about how she's like very monogamous, like, she's never going to cheat on him or whatever. But like, to be like, Tyler is not unreasonable. This is not a situation in which he just sees her talking to Sterling and he assumes the worst. Like, she does go out of her way to make him think that she's cheated on him.
100%.
Yeah.
And it is like a trigger point. Like it's seated earlier in the book. Like he is a jealous man. He is like, and
Yes.
that's part of his hypocrisy because he's like, and he acknowledges this. He's like, I'm so jealous and I'm worried that she's cheating on me. But also, like, I can't even be seen with her in public. And I
Yeah.
am essentially like, I'm cheating on God with her and I'm cheating on her with God,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So he's a hypocrite and that's part of why we like him.
It's very like Old Testament religion. And like, it's like the destructive God, the jealous God, that as opposed to like Jesus, who's kind of like a hippie, and in a lot of ways, I mean, that's something that like biblical scholars across denominations talk about. It's just like the stark difference between Old Testament and New Testament God. I think, yeah, Tyler definitely embodies more of that Old Testament God as much as he tries to be Jesus. He tries to be Jesus and it doesn't work so well. you know?
He tries to be Jesus, but he wants to own her in the way that, like, essentially like God, the way that I saw it when I was thinking, when I was like letting myself be really like, and I don't do this often, but like I was trying to let myself really feel like, okay, what's like when you let your like spiritual side in, what is this feeling like? What is this triggering for you? And I was like, it feels like I said earlier, that it feels like it's God's love, but he also wants to have sex with her. But I almost feel
Yeah.
like when you think about God in terms of like God wants you to have your free will, but God also like wants you to be totally committed to him, and God wants to be
Yeah.
like first, and God wants to own you or whatever, and you choose that ownership. It actually does completely make sense in like a dom sub context, in that Poppy
Mm-hmm.
chooses to be owned by him during those
Mm-hmm.
moments, but like it doesn't matter unless it's a choice, for one thing. But also, what is the final, when you're looking in like the metaphor? Obviously, I don't believe this in terms of like my contemporary morality, but when you're looking at the metaphor, the way that historically people have looked at sex is seen in a lot of ways by the culture as like the ultimate ownership. So it's like the paralleling of like this godly love with this sexual love. It is kind of like, why wouldn't God want to have sex with you? And that's
You know
probably
what? Of
why.
course God wants to fuck you.
What?
I mean, that's what like
Of course God wants, yeah.
nuns are brides of Christ. Like that's the
Yes.
whole shtick.
The Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. If y'all have not looked at that sculpture or read, like, are you familiar with it? By Bernini?
Vaguely. I feel like it's Saint Teresa's gets really close with God and comes is
Yes, yes. her spiritualism, and she's not the only one, like her mysticism, when you read it, she's like, and then it penetrated me with like the arrow of love, and like I felt intense ecstasy. And like, yeah, that's always been a part of especially Catholicism, I think. And like
Yeah.
that's yeah, it I think that this book in a lot of ways says the quiet part out loud about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And it's very much like even like I don't know if you read The Conquering of Tate the Pious by Sierra
Oh
Simone,
hell
which
yeah,
is
I did. It's so good.
it's like not even medieval, it's like dark ages, like William the Conqueror era, like 1,000 years ago, between like a nun and like one of the conquering army. And the nun and that nunnery, that convent's like whole shtick is like sex and ecstasy and joy as a way of like worshiping God. So this is just something that like so this is a question Sierra Simone is like asking in like all of her books of like, where do we draw the line between religion and worship and like sex and carnality, and like how like it's the Venn diagram of love, right? And in the middle is like
Yeah.
love, and they're just two sides of the same coin. And I think where we constantly slip up as humans is trying to separate that coin as opposed to acknowledging that they are the same thing in different
Yeah.
fonts.
Well, yeah, completely. This reminds me a lot of how conservatism has infiltrated a lot of romance spaces when you talk about like sex on the page, when they're like, you see this all the time. And I'm not saying that there aren't books that are sloppily written that, do like they sell themselves as romance, but they're not even good erotica, because erotica can be amazingly well written and character developed.
Yes.
But this, like, they're not even that. And first of all, I would say gently, if you are largely reading, and I say this as somebody who reads a lot of KU books that are amazing, but if you are largely reading KU books that all have very similar titles, like, and they're often like, seduced by the daddy, or like whatever, when you are reading a lot of churn and burn 10,000 word shorts, and you're like, man, these never have love in them, that might be something where you need to expand
Yeah.
your horizons. But there are, I'm not dismissing that there aren't books like that, but I have seen a lot of it, and it constantly worries me and makes me angry, where they're like, this had so much sex, where is the love? And I'm like, well, if genuinely there is no love, that is a writing problem that exists. But if you're reading like a book like this, and you don't have to like it, but if you're reading a book like this and you're like, it was all sex, no love, then
Oh
I
my God.
do think that you're falling into the trap of like separating romantic love and like true love and like dirty sex. Because I'm like, they do
Yeah.
have quote unquote dirty sex, but he loves her the
Yeah.
whole time,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
And I was like looking at some of like the Goodreads reviews for this book, and there were so many, or I'm like, it's okay if you don't like it. If you don't like
yeah,
this book, that's valid. That's fine. There's no book in the world that is for everybody.
yeah,
But I'm like, I just, a lot of the things that you're saying, I'm like, I need you to unpack some things. I think you need to unpack some things about why you're having this reaction and why you're not understanding the nuance that exists in this book.
and I do think sometimes this book is like sold, like, it's an erotic romance, and there's spanking and there's all this crazy sex, like whatever, and like it is funny and light and like, at points. But I do think some people are sold this as if it's going to be like a one-handed erotica read, and like if you're in the mood for that, that's totally great. I endorse it. We all do that. I personally am more inclined to like fanfic and literotica when I need that, but like some people want to read a whole book, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
I think that if you're looking for that, then like, yeah, you aren't gonna like this. And I think that some people are like sold this as like, oh, it's gonna be like, it's either gonna be that, or it's gonna be like, I don't know. I don't know. To be completely honest, I don't really know why you would read. I would be disappointed if I read a priest book and there wasn't some level of kink to it, because I think that
Mm-hmm.
sex in the church is inherently,
Catholicism is so kinky, like so kinky. Oh my God.
it's so kinky. I can tell y'all right now that one of the reasons why I became so fascinated with Catholic art is because Raphael is my favorite of the three grandmasters.
Of
Raphael fucked a lot. He had a
course.
mistress though. Yeah, yeah, he had a mistress that it sounds like he was possibly secretly engaged with, like, to her. It was serious. despite him being engaged to somebody else at the time. But he painted her in like one of my favorite nudes. It's called La Formarina. She's just completely naked. It's just like a classic nude. But he also, there's a lot of evidence that he painted her over and over and over as the Virgin Mary. Like she posed as the Virgin
Oh
Mary a
yeah.
million times. And that in itself is so
Yeah.
kinky. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Catholicism is so fucking kinky. You guys collect bones. And then they talk about in the book, they claim it's like the whatever, the relics, the holy relics, but it's just bones. You're just collecting bones and you wear fancy capes and you make really ornate churches and you have oil and incense for it. Like that's so fucking kinky.
and if anybody has been to St. Peter's, and I'm not saying this is kinky because that would be messed up, nothing but dead popes that are incorrupt, literally sitting out there waxing in like their glass coffins for you to see. And that's not the only church where there are dead bodies just sitting out. And I am just saying that I don't understand how you can be like, that is St. Peter's Basilica, and there's dead bodies sitting out there, but it's a problem if this priest wants to fuck somebody on an altar. I think
I
it's
just,
fine.
yeah,
And gets her up with like cunnilingus for the first time in her life. That's actually a blessing.
that's
He was giving her a
godly.
blessing.
God would
That's
not, the
godly.
clitoris only exists for female pleasure, and God would not have created that. If God does not make mistakes, the clitoris needs to be pleasured. That's what it's for. So
If God did not want men to be, if they so wished, the recipients during anal sex, why does the prostate feel good?
the prostate also doesn't really do anything besides feel good.
it's it's got some tangential stuff that's going on, but it certainly doesn't need to feel like that. So
Anyway,
anyway.
anyway, my last thing that I want to say on this book, completely changing the topic. I feel like we're taking down the ramp into like theological arguments and like this is not the podcast for that.
Yes, yeah.
None of us have that expertise. But just the last part when Tyler goes to he finally decides like I'm gonna track down Poppy, like I've been looking for her, like I've decided to say that I forgive her TM or whatever. He goes to Sterling because he knows where Sterling works. He like big firm, and like he walks in and Sterling's just like Tyler, my boy.
Yeah.
Hey, it's like giving like I'm half expecting him to say like old sport. Like it was so
He does say sport. He does say sport. He's like, because I think Tyler is like, no, she's not with me. And he's like, oh, tough times, sport. Sorry.
yeah, because Sterling thought that because Poppy obviously she faked staged the kiss and then broke up with Sterling, so Sterling assumed that Tyler and Poppy were together. And Tyler's just like so flabbergasted. This is the way Sterling is like, yeah, sorry for ruining your life and hiring a private detective to take pictures of you. That was kind of shitty of me, but like Poppy's so great. Like you just kind of go crazy a little bit. Like, yeah, I am still cheating on my wife. What of it? Like, like he's just like, yeah, do you want to get drinks?
Yeah, it's so crazy. And like, I think during my Threads rant today, I was also like Sterling's more like what I think a lot of like dommy romance heroes in bad books read like. Like that's like who Sterling is, where he's like the same in bed as he is out of bed. He's just like such a douchebag. Like there's just no intentionally no depth to him. But that was really funny because
Yeah.
he was like, you know what, Tyler, in retrospect, honestly, you're like a pretty solid dude, and like that was fucked up of me, but like whatever, like
Like,
he there was like he was like really he was that's there's he's the villain of the book, but maybe Tyler's just his own villain because it's
yeah,
like
it's mostly Tyler.
it's mostly Tyler. Like Sterling's like, good game, bro. Like off she goes. Like
And Tyler's like, what the fuck just happened?
I also think it was funny that the pictures that he got of them, like there were two of them were like Tyler just slinking about like around Poppy's place, and then one was them kissing, and I'm like, you didn't even like go hard enough to like find a picture of them fucking. Like your private eye is like definitely like they're fucking in this church. Your private eye is shit if that's all he was able to get. Like if he only got kissing pictures.
Come on, guys. Maybe not even Sterling was like they would fuck at the church.
Sterling was like, there's no way. And I'm like, Sterling, like, he was eating her out from behind. I think that was like their first, like, he did that before he put the tip in, I think.
Yeah.
That was like their
Because that's
first
when he's still
orgasmic
like,
act.
oh, it doesn't count if I just do
It doesn't, yeah.
cunnilingus. It doesn't count.
Bill Clinton rules, as we call it.
Oh my God.
That is like that's so funny. I'm like, honestly, Tyler, I think that's worse. Like, and I say that in a complimentary way. I think that if my priest was like, well, I put my dick in her in my bedroom, I'd be like, well, you shouldn't have done that, I guess. Wink. But like, you can, whatever. If my priest was
Yeah.
like, I bent her over an altar and ate her out from behind and had my face like fully in her ass, I'd be like, I think you might need to leave.
You're like, I think that might have been God calling you to.
I think,
You felt God in that church. God
yeah,
said
I
to
think.
go to Chili's instead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She certainly felt God in that church. He doesn't even come, I don't think. Like, he's like,
Oh,
that's part of how he justifies it. I remember now. She's like,
yeah.
oh, and he's like, well, don't worry, I didn't get off. So, like, it's absolutely above board.
And she's like, okay.
She's like, whatever, I guess. I'm not
um,
Catholic.
she's like, I'll take communion.
That's like Poppy's entire, whenever he says something, I always like something like that, which is crazy. I always imagine Poppy being like the kombucha girl, where she's like, I should probably question him on this, but like, the sex is too good. I'm just gonna keep
No,
on going.
no, I guess
They're like,
not.
whatever. He's the expert.
It's like, you know what? That's none of my business. That's none of my business.
That's his journey. Like, that's Poppy's whole thing. She's like, I love him, but he's on his own deal. Have you, before we wrap up, have you read Midnight Mass, the sequel novella?
No, I haven't.
It's so angsty. It's about them having like, it also, it's really good if you read it, if you're feeling like, oh, I feel like they need more work to do. A lot of the conflict in the novella is Tyler being like, God damn it, I have like no fucking life. Like, I'm in school, I don't have a purpose. I used to be a priest. I don't really have a job. I'm not really bringing anything to the table. She's like getting awards for like her dance studio, and also she's a really hot like friend who's like, definitely, it keeps up with Tyler being like a jealous bitch, because he's like, the fuck is this guy doing? Like, at every, but it's also, he has, this is like, that book is a testament to the fact that men need jobs.
Men
Tyler
do need
needs a
jobs.
job.
I was honestly expecting them to like, I think the first time I read this, for there to be like an epilogue where they're like building huts somewhere, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Where they've like just taken a year off and they're just like traveling and like volunteer. They joined the Peace Corps together or something, you know?
No, I think I could be wrong. I need to reread it. I think it's like in my special edition. I really need to reread this because I feel like I'm remembering a point where Tyler's like creeping in the shadows of the dance studio, like watching her and her friend, and he's like, what's she doing? And then like after the friend is gone, he like fucks her really hard, like in front of the mirror, being like, who do you belong to? But it's also, it's so funny because it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, this is like, you need a hobby that's not God or Poppy's pussy. Like, you need to get outside. And like, that's part of his journey, is for being like, you need to go outside.
Make
Like, you
some
need a hobby.
friends,
Make some
please.
friends. Take him to like the little, I don't know if you've seen that skit, but it's like the dog park for like boyfriends, where women like take their, yeah, they take their boyfriends out and they're like, make friends. This
Yeah.
one's
Or yeah,
shy.
I've seen
Like,
also versions of that where it's like boyfriend daycare where they're like, "Oh, I'm here to pick up Jeff." And they're like, "Jeff, like we had to give him a new shirt because he did spill beer down his shirt today." Like whatever.
yes. He made one new friend today, and it's like, yay!
Yeah.
That's Tyler. He needs to go. He needs to go make a friend. That's not God.
He needs some friends. Maybe he needs a dog too. Could a dog or a cat, you know.
He really does. She like in her Leah Ness series, I will always recommend that series. It's so good. But the most evil man, the evil, it's MMF, the evil hero in the throuple. In the last book, he gets a dog, and he's like, he'll just be like doing the most terrible things, and he comes home and he's like, my dog, like his puppy, like he's
I
just like
love
so.
that.
It's part of his character development is getting a dog.
Well, that's how you know he's secretly a good person. Like if he's good to animals, like he's actually a sweetheart.
Nothing else matters if you're good to animals.
Yeah. It's like oh, what is it? Evie Dunmore's, I think, Portrait of a Scotsman. Spoiler alert for the end of that book. They like have a separation, like not a legal divorce, a separation, but he gets a dog that's like her favorite type of dog. But in the meantime, he gets a dog and he like comes back and he's like, it's basically like, if anything happened to this dog, like I'd kill everyone in this room and myself. Like, and he's like a large, like, like morally gray, like he like tricked her into marrying him, like man or whatever. And then he's like, I love my dog. Also, honey, it's been like 6 months. Please come back.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're always. I love it so much when there's like a historical. I think it's like it's a Vivian Lorette book, but it's like How to Steal a Scoundrel's Heart, and like at the end he's like groveling, and he's like, also I have the most ridiculous dog now, and she's like, well, you didn't have me with the rest of it, but you've got me at like this stupid little dog that you now have. Like,
Heather needs a dog or a cat.
Well, I don't think this is a spoiler because she mentioned it. And the devil out now. The hero is also pretty evil. The littlest Bell brother, all grown up, he gets a kitten. And the kitten's name is Lilith because the kitten's evil.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, he's actually not that bad. Yes. He's got a kitten. Yeah. He loves his kitten.
Yes. That's also, it's the like the Black Dagger Brotherhood. Like yes. Beth, like the first character, she has a pet cat, and the cat just becomes the unofficial mascot of this like vampire biker gang, for lack of a better term. Like they're just like, we love this cat is ours, and the cat's like, yeah, that's right,
I am the Black Dagger Brotherhood cat.
Correct, I am the Black Dagger Brotherhood. Me.
Yeah, everybody, I would have recommended Priest before. I recommend Priest even more now. I think that if you are as a connoisseur, I don't know that it's like my number one favorite book of hers, but it's like a 5-star book for me. And if you are uncertain about beginning in the super heavy plotty MMF waters, which like a lot of her extended series are, I think this is a perfect entry point for her work.
Yeah, it's great. I recommend it. It is both like something that you can just kind of like inhale in an afternoon and la-di-da go on your day. And it's also like meaty enough that if you want to like take your time and be like, oh, it's really, do a little, if you're a highlighting and annotating kind of reader, there's plenty in here. Yeah.
I've thought about in the past, like annotating something. I now own like multiple copies of this book, but I always thought that like if I was going to annotate one of my like sort of annotatable versions of this, like maybe it'd be fun to like do like one color for like the quotes from like, damn, that's deep, you really get me, Tyler Bell, and other times when I'm like, this is the horniest shit, I need to like go back to this.
Deep in
like,
pussy.
Yeah, he's deep in pussy, and Poppy is touching herself in the next, like, yeah, Poppy's telling him like the craziest shit and being like, oh, who knows what he'll do.
Forgive me, Father.
Forgive me, Father.
What kind of penance do I have to do? I wonder.
She's like glancing over. She's like, hell yeah, he's hard as a rock.
She's like, yeah, sucking a dick? Is that penance? Is that count?
Is that penance? And he's like, how did you know?
You're right. Oh, Jesus. Literally Jesus. God, literally Jesus. Figured it out. You got me.
And Jesus, sitting in his happily married bed, said, sure.
And that's Priest by Sierra Simone. Listener, hope you liked it. I hope you liked this episode. As always, you can find the podcast at We Read It One Night on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, wereaditone@gmail.com. You can find me at the Allison Finch on Instagram and Threads.
And you can find me at Difficult Woman Reads on Instagram and also Threads. And who knows what's coming
definitely
next.
Threads. That's where I found. For a second, it sounded like you were not going to say Threads. I was like, girl, don't lie.
Girl, don't lie. I'm on Threads too much.
But yeah, if you have a book or a guest or a topic that you would like us to discuss, slide into the DMs, send us an email, and make sure you leave a rating and review wherever you're listening, because that is the best way for new listeners to find the podcast, the best way to show your support, and it takes like 30 seconds. Also, download the episode when you're listening. You can then delete the download after you're done listening, because that is also how the podcast algorithm gods like to measure things. And then if you have a little bit of extra room in your budget this month, you can visit the bookshelf.org affiliate link in the description. If you shop through that affiliate link, you can support indie bookstores, get a delicious book, and also support this podcast. You can also buy us a coffee at the link in the description. Godspeed, comrades.
Literally.